Hi everybody, my name is Addison. I am the owner of 100 Acre Films, a production company in San Diego, and I'm also the co-manager of the San Diego Premiere Pro user group. And today I'm going to show you a new feature that's coming soon in a future version of Premiere. It's actually a pretty cool change to the UI in two big regards. And so I'm just going to kind of walk you through what's new and how this impacts your workflow and working inside Premiere. But first, a word from our sponsor. I don't really have a sponsor, I just feel like I have to say that because every other YouTube video out there seems to have a sponsor. Okay, so let's dive into Premiere and let me show you what I'm talking about. In the current version of Premiere, when you start a new project, you get this dialog box, this new project dialog box. You have the project name, you have the location of where you're gonna save it, a bunch of other information about your GPU and all this other stuff, scratch disks, ingest settings, all that stuff is right here. A lot of this stuff you don't need to worry about right when you're getting started. So I'm just gonna give this a quick name here. We'll call this test 1 and we'll click OK. The other thing that I hear from a lot of users when they're getting started with using Premiere that confuses them a little bit is this dialog box right here, this new sequence one. I've been using Premiere for a long time. It doesn't confuse me. I understand everything that's going on here. I'm old enough and a big enough dinosaur to know what all these formats are, sadly. But for a lot of new users, they don't know where to begin with this. And so it is a bit confusing. So I think Adobe did need to sort of address that for all the folks that are coming up and starting with Premiere, to give them an easier way to get into a project. And by changing up the UI, that's exactly what they've done. So let's dive into the beta version of Premiere and see what they've changed and get a little preview of what's to come. So in the beta version, you can see we still have the same sort of home screen with all the same things that you're used to seeing. New project, open project, all this other stuff. But let's create a new project. And you can see right away, this is different. This is the new import window. And you can see here, over on this side, you have all these areas where you could have footage stored. And then down here, you've got your devices. So I've got a C drive, which is my system drive, and I also have another drive in the system, I call it my media drive, which has a bunch of media on it inside this laptop. And if I click on this icon here for my media drive, you can see here are all the folders I have on there with different projects. And if I click on one, let's just say this project in particular, I can drill down and boom, there's some footage for a project that I'm working on. Now, from here, I can start importing clips straight into Premiere. I can click them and select the clips that I want. And if you notice, down along the bottom here, it starts populating as I'm clicking them. And you'll see it kind of puts them in an order that I'm selecting them. Now, it would be kind of interesting to be able to move these little icons around, maybe do like kind of a rough cut of putting all the clips in a certain order, but that's not in this version. I don't know if that's gonna be on the roadmap for this, but you know, that's something that you think you could do, but you can't do. But so I've got all the clips selected. You'll notice over here, in this window over here for import settings, I can turn this on, and now it says create new sequence. I can give this a name, and if I click create down here on the bottom, it will automatically create a new sequence with all of these clips. Now I can go through and change my mind. Maybe I don't want the color cards here. Maybe I don't want these last couple takes for whatever reason. You can see I'm still figuring out what I want to include in this sequence. But once I click create, it's gonna go into Premiere and put all of those clips into a sequence. Now, I don't know that I'm gonna ever really want to do that as part of my workflow. I can see how, you know, for something simple, that would be a really cool thing to have. So I think most of the time I'm gonna be turning that feature off, but it's still a nice thing to have. What I would like to see over here in this import settings is instead of create new sequence, would be create new bin. And as I select all the clips, once I go into Premiere, it'll put those clips into a bin. And what would be nice is to be able to do it for multiple clips. So you can see up in the top here, this says day 2 ProRes. So this is all the footage from day 2. So it would be nice to be able to create a day 2 bin with all the clips that I want, and then go back to create a day 1 bin and put all the clips from day 1 in that, so that when I go into Premiere, all my bins are created with all the clips that I've selected, and I'm ready to start editing. That would be a suggestion I would have for Adobe. And I should mention, I think this is still a work in progress, so that feature may end up in there when this finally gets released. I really hope so. But yeah, that is one thing that I think is kind of missing currently in this beta version. So let's select a couple clips and get into Premiere. So I'm going to select these clips here, and you can see it's populated them down here, and I'm going to click import and it'll import them in. Now I'm going to step back a bit because I'm going to go to create new project, and I want to show you one more thing. Down in the bottom here, you'll see project name, project location. So that dialog box that we used to see in Premiere that had all that information, most of which we didn't need to worry about right at the beginning setting up a project, has now been condensed to just this, project name, project location. I happen to think that's really good because most of that information in that dialog box in the old version of Premiere, I never changed. Once you set it, it just stayed set, and these are the only two things that I was really doing in that box. And so having them here as I'm setting the project up, I think is a nice thing to have. So let's give this a name. We'll just call this test, and we'll save it in that folder. And let's click create. And you'll see that it opens up, and there's my 4 clips. And so I'm ready to start editing. One thing I should mention is that if you don't like the import tab, if that's not your thing and you just don't want to use that, you can still just bypass it, go into Premiere as you normally do, and use the media browser or just use the import tool just to bring in everything that you want to do. Now I'm going to drag these down to a timeline. And so there we go. I've got my timeline here, just some clips. Now let's look at a couple things about the current interface in this version of Premiere. The first thing you'll notice up at the top, you have the 3 tabs, import, edit, export. You'll notice that the workspaces that we used to have all along here are missing. They're still here, don't worry, there's no need to panic. If we come over to this button right here, workspaces, boom, they're all there. And you can, these are all the ones you have grown to use, know and love. Here's my personal one for my laptop, here's the one for my workstation, and so they're all still here, they're just neatly in this little drop-down menu. Again, a feature that I like. I like having them here, less clutter. And so, yeah, if I need to go back and import more footage, I can just go right back to the import tab. Let's see, we can go into this project, maybe go into day 1, and then boom, I can import some clips from day 1 and add that to my project as well. So maybe I'll just add these 3 clips. I'll click import, and we'll let those import in. So now I've got all my clips in. So let me show you what's new with the export tab, because we've got a whole new way to export clips. And I'm really excited about this. I really like what they've done with this tab. So coming to the export tab, you can see that everything is completely new. It's completely redesigned. Over here you have a simplified list of things that you would want to export out for. I'm going to click on media file because that's what I need to export out. I want to create a Cineform file for my archive. So I'm going to click on that, and you can see here's my timeline. I can even play it now in this export window. I really like that feature. Look at this. All right, here we go. So I can play back and watch the video before I export it to make sure that everything looks and sounds okay. So in the settings here, you can see I've got my file name, I've got where it's going to go, the location, I've got the preset that I'm going to use, the format, and I can choose from a number of different presets. If I click on the preset, I can click more presets if I don't see what I want, and the preset manager opens up, and I have all these different presets to choose from. I love the new preset manager. I think this is a really good way to have all of your presets in one place. So let's go back. So that's my Cineform file for my archive, but the client that I'm delivering to needs an H.264 to go to YouTube. So all I have to do is come down here and click on YouTube, and now I can do H.264 and get it a YouTube version of the video. Again, I can save it. Here's the file name, here's the location. And if you notice down here, if it was going to my YouTube channel, I could sign in and post it right to my YouTube channel right after it's done encoding. But all of the controls that you had in the other UI, in the older one, are all still here. If you click on the audio and video tabs right here, you'll see them all right here. So here's your frame size, frame rate, field order, aspect, render at maximum depth, use maximum render quality. All of these things that you would normally be looking for are all still here. They've even hidden a few under this More tab. Things that you didn't usually normally change are all now right here. So that's a nice thing to have. And I like the fact that it's kind of hidden there. Again, less clutter, but it's still there if you need it. And you've got a tab for audio, multiplexer, captions, effects, metadata, actions. All of those things that you had before are all still here, but they're just neatly tucked away in these little fly open menus. So we've got our YouTube version set, we've got our media file set, my Cineform file. All I have to do now is click export and it'll export them out. I could send a media encoder if I wanted to, but one thing that they've changed in this version that I really, really like is, you'll notice I have two versions selected here, the Cineform and the H.264. Previously in Premiere, I would have to export them out one at a time if I didn't want to send everything over to Media Encoder. But in this version, I can literally click export right now with those two selected, and it will export out the Cineform file first, and then it will export out the H.264, one right after the other inside Premiere. Now, you can't edit in Premiere, it kind of locks up Premiere like it normally would if you were doing that, but if you didn't want to have to queue it, and you didn't want to use Media Encoder, you could just do it all right here in Premiere now. I really like that. I mean, I do use Media Encoder when I have a group of files to export out, but this is a nice feature to have. Sometimes you just want to get it, just stay in Premiere and do everything there, and this allows you to do that. So it's a really nice feature. The other thing that I think is really kind of interesting is, you'll notice in this timeline, you can drag in and out points. So I can drag this in point and start my video right here. So, and if you'll notice that it's dependent, it remembers which version you're on. So the media file, it's the whole thing, but if I come down and just adjust the YouTube, it remembers it for that version. So let's say that for the archive version, I had a slate that I wanted to use to put on the front of it for my own records. You know, maybe the date that we did the production, client name, any of that kind of information. I could put that on my timeline, include that in the Cineform export, but when I go to export the H.264 to send to my client, I can come down here and just use this in marker to go just past where that slate would be, and then export out the file just without that slate. So that's a nice handy feature. I like that ability in here. Now you could have done that in the last one as well, but I think having this in marker and having it look like what I'm used to in Premiere as opposed to that different kind of one that was in the old UI, I really like the fact that it's consistent now with all the other in and out markers inside Premiere. So as you can tell, I'm pretty excited about the new export tab. I think it's a really great update to what we've had previously inside Premiere. The other one worked fine. I never had any issues with it, but I think this new way of doing it with all these different new presets and the way that they've laid everything out is really a big improvement, and I'm excited about working with it more when it finally does get released. The import tab, you know, I think that's a great thing too. You know, I'm not as quite excited about it in its current form just because of some of the things that we talked about. So hopefully the Adobe engineers are watching and maybe they have already started to implement some of that stuff in the next version. Again, this is all the first version of this that we've seen. So I'm sure there's more stuff that's going to be coming, and they might have things on the roadmap that we don't even know about yet. So I'm going to kind of hold judgment on that for right now. But I do like the idea behind it, and I think it will be great just with a few modifications. And I think the cleaning up of some of the UI elements like the workspaces and stuff inside Premiere is a good improvement too. So hopefully these changes will help your workflow, help you work faster and work smarter and better. If you want to join the San Diego Premiere Pro user group for our next meeting, we usually meet on the third Wednesday of every month, so you can find us on our meetup page or our Facebook group page. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.